Hi everyone, this is the first in three videos of three videos about the Pentax K1000. I'm going to do a series of videos for each of the camera models that I own to give you an idea of what the camera is like and how to use it, and we're going to try to do some interesting things that will actually put you in the driver's seat, so to speak, for using each of these cameras. This way, if you want to try it out, you can see these videos and then decide whether or not you want to buy one before you actually have to shell out the 10 bucks or whatever it costs for these now. And also, if you have one, this might show you some interesting things about the camera that you didn't know before, or how to use it if it's new to you. So we're going to start with the K1000. This is my first SLR that I ever got, and it's the one I've had for the longest, obviously. It's one of the ones that I know the best. The K1000 is what's called an interchangeable lens, single lens reflex camera. Single lens reflex simply means that there's one lens on the front, like would be the case right now, and inside of the camera body, as you can see, let's see, can I get the light? Okay, you can see there's a little light spot right in there. That's a mirror, and the light hits the mirror, goes up into what's called a pentaprism, bounces around a bunch of times, and then goes out the eyepiece. It's called a reflex because when you take an image, the mirror pops up, and then the light goes straight onto the film plane. And then after the image is taken, the mirror comes back down. That's the reflex action. So this is an interchangeable lens, single lens reflex. And what the single lens reflex I just explained, the interchangeable lens part means that the lenses for the camera can be swapped. Here's the kit lens that it came with, or one of the kit lenses that it might have come with. This is a 50mm f2. Interchangeable lens simply means lenses can be swapped out. Oops, let's get that back in the frame. There we go. The target market for the Pentax K1000 was an entry-level student-type market. There were 4 cameras in the Pentax Film K line ever. The K1000 was the entry, then the KM, KX, and K2 increasing in feature level. The K2 being a professional or semi-professional grade camera. The K1000 is the most basic of the K series. It's also one of the most basic film SLR, interchangeable lens SLRs ever made. Has very few features. It's entirely mechanical, uses the battery only for the light meter, which means if you don't have a battery, or if the battery is corroded and you can't replace it, it still works just fine. It just doesn't have a light meter. And that's something most cameras can't say. Even my K2, if it doesn't have a working battery, the camera doesn't work. Either of my K2s, they're both like that. So the K1000 is a very, very reliable camera. The old ones, this one is about as old as I am. It was built sometime in the first part of 1977, like me, is a tank. They were all metal back then, very reliable, capable of lasting an extremely long time, evidenced by this one, which is still going strong today and in great shape. Let's see. I'm actually not going off the top of my head for these ones. I have a script. Can you believe it? I just have to find my place now. The introductory price of the K1000, just for reference, in 1976 was $299.50 with the lens, with a lens like this. In 1997, when they went out of production 21 years later, they were $315 for the body only. Now, you'll hear a lot or read a lot on the internet that the K1000 had the longest production run of any camera ever made. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. I have 3 or 4 cameras on my shelf that had 30-year production runs. This one ran for 21 years. The K1000 does have the title of having the most copies of it, about 21 million, I think. I forget for sure. There are more K1000s floating around than any other film camera ever made. And so that's definitely bragging rights. So it was made from 1976 to 1997, and from 76 until 78, it was made in Japan. So if you have a camera that says somewhere on it, I found this the other day, and I was all excited. Oh, I'll be able to say right where it was made. That's right. The first one's made in Japan. Don't say made in Japan. They say Asahi Optical Company on the back here underneath the film advance lever. After 1978, they moved assembly to Hong Kong from 78 to 1990. And those ones, I believe, say made in Hong Kong on the bottom. I have a couple of those sitting over on my desk, but I forgot to grab them. Then from 1990 to 1997, they were made in China. And those say made in China on the bottom of them, or they assembled in China, something like that. Let's see, before the K1000, these were based on the preceding model line called the Spotmatics, which were based on the H and the S series. After the K line came the M series. And those were the preceding and subsequent families. In just a moment, we're going to go over and do a feature overview to look at all the different features on this camera, which there aren't many, but we'll look at them. Hi everyone. Okay, so we're going to continue here our overview, and I'm going to start with the top of the camera. This bubble level, that's not stock equipment, but I can't get it out today. It's difficult to get out. Sorry about that. Okay. So the camera top, starting here, and this organization follows the instruction manual. So if you have an instruction manual and you want to pull it out, you can follow along what I'm going to show you. This is the film advance lever. So when there's film in the camera and you've taken an exposure, that advances the film. You just wind it to the right, it advances the film, it increases the number from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and so on. Ad infinitum, not really, up to 36. Then here is the shutter speed dial. This dial right here controls the shutter speed. So right now it's set at 1/1000th. Let me change the focus. Is that getting better or worse? It's getting better. It's getting better. Here we go. Okay. So right now you can see it's at 1/1000th. I pull it up like that. Now I'm changing the ISO. I don't pull it up. So there's so much for knowing the most about this. I just rotate it, and then I go from 1,000th to 500th down all the way to 1 second to bulb. So 1/1000th of a second, 500th, and so on and so forth, down to a full second. Bulb mode means push the shutter release down, and the shutter stays open until I release the shutter release. Second, my outline screen has gone black. Okay, advanced lever, shutter speed index. The shutter speed index, that's fancy for just saying the numbers on the shutter speed dial. That's the shutter speed index. The next one is the hot shoe. So I'm actually going to try and, there we go. This is the hot shoe. Now there are two different types of accessory shoes. There's a cold shoe and a hot shoe. The hot shoes have at least one metal thing in the center. That's an electrical contact that tells the flash to fire when the shutter goes. And you can see there's an X here next to the 60th. That's the flash shutter speed, the fastest speed you can use a flash with. And you can see an X right there, I think. That means that it's an X-type hot shoe. I don't know what that means. I just know that I don't know what it means that it's an X-type. It's the type of syncing. I'm not that much of an expert or nerd, however you want to phrase it. But the hot shoe doesn't have to just be used for flashes. It can be used for other equipment. For instance, before hot shoes, many cameras had cold shoes, which are used for external light meters or view rangefinders, things that aren't really needed for this. So typically the flash is the hot shoe is just going to be used for a flash. That's the most frequent use. After the hot shoe, we've got the film rewind knob over here. That's the actual knob part of the film rewind knob. And the film rewind knob has on it the film rewind crank. So you can see here it pops out. That's the film rewind crank. And that's when you're done with the roll, you just use this to, you push this button down here, which we'll get to later, and then you just rewind the film. That's the film rewind mechanism. The exposure counter over here, back to the other side. You can see the numbers there. That's the number of exposures that have been taken. Let's get this back in focus. That's the number of exposures that have been taken. So right now it's saying 1 or 2, now 3. Let me try and do that without my finger being in the way. You can see that every time I hit the shutter, film counter advances one. And I need to print these out instead of doing this off my phone. Let's see, exposure, film rewind, crank, cocked indicator. Okay, this is something, this is funny. I had this camera for 15 years, 20 years, something like that now, and didn't notice this until I read the instruction manual to develop the outline for this. There's a little red dot next to my finger right there. So that says that the camera's ready to take a picture. So I'm going to hit the shutter, and it's black. Advance the lever, turns back to red. That's the ready indicator. So if that's black, that means you can hit the shutter all day long and it's not going to take a picture. If it's red, then it's ready to take a picture. I can't believe I didn't know that for 20 years. The shutter release is this button right here, and you can see there's a little hole in that. If you're doing long exposures, you can screw in a cable to that and then release and then, you know, it's got a little plunger on it, and then you can hit the shutter without the camera shaking. It's really good for tripods, long exposures, things like that. But this is the shutter release. It's what you push when you want to take a picture. And then the last thing is the film speed indicator. So let's see if we can get some good light on that. All right, do you see that little silver spot right there? Right now, you'll have to take my word for this, it says 100. So if we pull up on this is what I was doing wrong the first time. If you pull up on this and turn it, that changes the number from 100 to 200. I'm going counterclockwise. I'm sorry, from 400 to 200 to 100. So going counterclockwise makes the number go lower, all the way down to 20. That's the film speed, the ASA or ISO. It's called ISO now, though the older cameras say ASA. It's the exact same thing. It's ASA stood for American Standards Association. ISO is International Standards Organization. And they're people who come up with the mathematical formulas that determine film speed. It's logarithmic stuff that I would fall asleep trying to learn, so I don't know it. But when it says ASA or ISO 100, it's basically the same as your digital camera's sensitivity of 100 or 200. They function similarly. So those are the functions on the top. I'm going to refocus this in just a minute, and we will take a look at the next part of the camera. Hi everyone. Alright, so here we are back again to look at the front of the Pentax K1000. And the front has very few features on it. This is again following the instruction manual, so if you have your instruction manual, you'll be able to follow along pretty easily. The first feature on the front is the lens release lever. Now, as I said earlier in the video, this is an interchangeable lens camera. So here we have the camera body with the lens off. Ooh, look at that pretty gleamingness on the... Anyway, never mind. Here's the lens. There's a red dot on the side of the lens, which you can see there. It corresponds with the red dot right there on the lens mount. Just mount it like that. Standard bayonet mount. Rotate it clockwise about a third turn, and it's locked in place. And everything, including the Pentax logo, now there, okay, oh, all better, is all lined up. This lever right here, I'm going to turn the camera, and you can see it's poking out from the side right there. That's the lens release lever. And you push it back towards the camera body, rotate the lens counterclockwise about a third turn, and then you can dismount the lens. And that's how the interchangeable lens mounting system works on the Pentax bayonet mounts, the Ks, the M series, the LX, the MM series, the MZs, MX, and all that. Every Pentax with a bayonet mount functions for mounting and dismounting cameras in that same manner. The next thing that we have on the front here is the strap ring lug. Here we go, let's get that back in focus. You can see here I have split rings on mine because my camera looks like a badass biker with these earrings. Not really. I have fewer straps than I have cameras, so I have little clips on the ends of the straps so that I can swap them between cameras. But the lugs themselves are, you can see it right there where the split ring is mounted in. It's a little piece of metal sticking out from the camera with a hole through it. And you can put a split ring on it like I have, or cameras used to come with, maybe still do, these little triangular split rings that the strap just mounts directly to. I prefer not to have the straps on my cameras because it makes it easier to put them inside of a camera case when they don't have a strap. The next and last thing on the camera front is way over here. It's hard to see right now, There's a little black cap here. It covers the X flash port. Now, on some cameras like mine, my hot shoe is dead. So the camera flash, if I put it in here, doesn't actually flash. There's no signal going to the hot shoe. But the port right here does work. So I have to have a flash that connects to the port. This is if you want to have a second flash on your being fired from your camera, or have an off-camera flash. You can plug it in right here. I have a cap that I found on another old broken K1000 that just fits right in there and keeps the dirt out. That's the front. We're going to take a look next at the camera bottom. At the camera back. All right. So this is the camera back on the K1000. Let's get that in focus. I'm going to take that off. There are exactly two things, as you'll see in your instruction manual, on the camera back in terms of features. The first one is the accessory fitting groove. Let's see if I can get that in focus here. Nope, wrong way. Okay, you see on the eyepiece, trying to get this in focus. There we go. There's a little groove right below where I'm pointing right now with this cover. That's the accessory fitting groove. That's where different accessories can fit in. And the Ks and the Spotmatics and many other cameras have the exact same groove. So one of the accessories I'm going to show you, which I have two, came from a Spotmatic. The first accessory is this cover that fits over the viewfinder eyepiece. Viewfinder eyepiece being that I just dropped the cover. I'm not going to go down, bend over to pick it up. But it's a little cover that prevents light from going in the eyepiece, because anytime light reaches the light sensor, it's on. So if light leaks in through the eyepiece, then it'll just slowly drain your battery. And also if you're taking long exposures, you want to cover this, like star trail exposures. You'd want to cover this so that light doesn't get in the back of the camera through the eyepiece and fog your long exposures. And that's really important if you're doing something that's like an hour to 4 to 5 hour exposures, like a star trail or night photography. This is the second accessory I'm going to show you. This was a Spotmatic, an old Spotmatic accessory, and it is a periscope, not for actual underwater use. Really, that would just destroy it. But it fits on the back of the camera like this. Oops. Had it upside down. Okay, it fits on the back of the camera like that over the eyepiece, and it allows you to look through here and see what the eyepiece is seeing. So you can use this as a waist level finder, for instance, or turn to the side, for instance. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. The only downside is everything's in reverse, but it's an actual accessory that fits on the camera, so that's really neat. We're back here again looking at this Pentax K1000. I don't know why I keep introducing them like that. When I edit this, it's all going to be one seamless video. Not really seamless, because these are pretty lo-fi, amateurish. Anyway, so here's the camera bottom. And there's, again, not a whole lot to see on the camera bottom compared to, for instance, the top. And what we have is the battery chamber and cap. This is, again, following along with your instruction manuals. I have a quarter here. I'm rich, so I got a quarter. Not really. I had to borrow this from my girlfriend. Here's the battery cap. In the original K1000s, they unscrewed like this one does. That's why I got a quarter. In the newer ones, they're bayonets, so you just have to rotate them half or a quarter turn, and they pop out. Here's the battery. It is an LR44 battery. You can get these pretty commonly still. They're really cheap. I got 100 of them for $3. They don't last very long, but they were $3. So these go in. Most LR44s in other cameras I have go with the negative side facing the bottom of the camera. So when you're holding the camera with the bottom facing the ground, so is the negative side. The K1000 is abnormal in that the negative side faces towards the inside of the camera. It's very strange that way. Maybe not all that strange. I might just not have that many cameras where that's the way it is. Okay, so then with these screw-on battery caps, they're always a lot of fun because they just don't line up properly. Here we go. That was a false start. All right, that was a false start too. This is kind of how, in theory, all you just do is put them back on and then just screw the cap back on. There it goes. That worked. Okay. I really know what I'm doing. Honestly, just trust me, please. The next thing on the bottom of the camera is the tripod receptacle. Let's get that back in focus. It's a little female screw port right down here. Oh, God, I'm going to get bounced off YouTube for that. It's this little thing where the tripod just screws into, and it's a threaded female port. The last thing on the bottom is the film rewind button, and that's over here. And so when you're done with a roll of film, just depress that, and that releases the sprocket, which we're going to see in a minute. So that with the film rewind lever and crank up here, yeah, that's the right way, you can then rewind the film. All right, we're back to look at the inside of the camera. This is the last part of our tour of the features of the K1000. And following again in your instruction manual, you've got the film guide rail. It's one of these two silver ones. I think it's the one on the outside. I think it's this one here and this one here. Yeah, I think that's the film guide rail. And then the one on the inside should be the film rail. And the difference being that the film guide rail helps keep the film, it touches the edges of the film so that it stays in proper alignment. And the film rail, the film's holes, which we'll see in the next video, touch that so that that combined with the pressure plate, which we'll see in a second, keeps the film flat on plane. If the film weren't flat, then it would be out of focus because the lenses are engineered to have the focus be exactly on the surface of the film where the light hits the emulsion. The next thing is we have the film chamber, which is over here. This is where the film gets placed when you're about to use it. You can see, and this locks into the 35mm spool. We'll see how this works in the next video. And the next thing we have is the film, film take-up spool over here on this side. And what you'll see is that after you release the shutter and you advance the film lever, you can see some movement there. That pulls the film forward one frame each time. The film roller is the next item. That's right here. It's kind of hard. This is all black to get a good image of it, but this is the film roller. It's got sprockets on it. And what happens is that as the film holes come off of the film rail, they engage the sprocket and they turn the sprocket, and this is actually what tells the camera counter how the film is advancing, so it advances the number on the counter. And this also keeps the film from going backwards and helps keep tension on it so that the film stays flat and on plane when it's inside your camera. The last part we're going to look at, the last two parts are connected. They are the back cover, which is this part right here, which closes over the body of the camera to keep the inside light tight where the film is kept, and the pressure plate, which is this bit right here. It's there we go. You can see a little bit of reflection on it. This presses up against the back of the film to keep it flat up against the film rails. That's how it stays completely flat on plane in the body of the camera. Now, as you can see, here's the shutter cloth. And what's going to happen is I'm going to take off the front cap here. I'm going to set this at 1/60th of a second, and there you go. You can see that shutter moved kind of. It worked better the first time. Let's go down to a 1/15th of a second. You can see that the shutter is opening to allow the light that's coming through the lens, that's a full second right there, onto the film plane. This is what it looks like for bulb mode. Push the shutter release down, let it up, there we go. Couple of things to note. The shutter on this is a cloth shutter, but with any shutter, on any camera, digital film, whatever it is, do not stick your finger in it. Don't open it up and stick your finger and letting it close to see what it feels like. It's going to just ruin your camera. And also don't touch it. Even when it's closed, don't touch it right now because you can damage the shutter. And that's like a $120 repair right now in 2012 for an old film camera like this. So don't touch the shutter. Don't put your finger in the shutter when it's open. And also, don't touch the mirror. You can permanently damage the mirror that way if you put your finger on it. So you don't want to do that either. So with that, that concludes this video about the K1000. So let's get this in focus for a nice end shot. How is that? That's the wrong way. Here we go. Okay, there we go. There's a nice end shot. That concludes this video on the Pentax K1000. Our next video is going to take a look at, it's called the Features Review. And what I'll actually be doing is showing you how the features work together to tell you what the camera's doing and help you take better pictures.